welcome to Alan's Italy. For those of you who are watching in the Woodstock viewing area, we're sorry that we're a little late tonight. We're starting about 20 minutes late, and the reason is that there was somebody who was doing a show before, and our usual very relaxing time before when Alan and I work on getting the show ready was a little rushed. So, and there were other problems. So please forgive us for that. At any rate, welcome. And tonight we are going to be going to a really wonderful and fascinating area of Italy. Now, you might be looking at this and saying, this guy's losing his mind. That's what he did last week. But, I understand that, and I might be losing my mind, but that's not the reason that I have Alan's Italy Orvieto on the screen. The reason is that I had to go back to something that I had started last week. I spoke about a restaurant that Laura and I had dinner at, Trattoria La Grotta, and this is a picture of me explaining a napkin folding demonstration to the waitress, Mirella, I think her name was, if I remember correctly. And what I wanted to do on that show was to show you exactly how I do this napkin folding, because although I know nothing about food and nothing about preparation, and I certainly could not cook the kinds of dinners that Laura does for our friends, I am the one who sets the table and does the napkin. So I'm going to give you, to begin with, a very quick napkin folding into what I was showing them. And the napkin they were using was a better one than this one because it was a little thicker. The thicker the napkin, the easier it is to do what I'm about to do. So Ellen is getting into position, and this is the napkin that I'm going to be using. And this is the procedure that I showed the people in Italy, and they were very, very impressed. So, I did this, in other words, make it into a triangle like this, and then bring it in like this, and make it into kind of like two triangles like this, and then turn it over like that, bring this up like that on here so that it looks like that, and then flip it over. This is the key part here, and fold it in like this, fold it over like that, and then hope that it stands up, and there it goes. And that's the perfect napkin folding that's the only thing I'm capable of doing. So when Laura's getting ready to have a dinner, she brings me in, says, fold your napkins, and then get the heck out of the dining room. So I do, and that's what I showed these people, and I thought that they'd give me a job folding napkins, but unfortunately, I'm going to have to figure out another way of spending a long time in Orvieto without having to pay for a hotel. So this is the napkin folding, which I'm going to put on the side here. And let's get on with tonight's show. So here we are back again. There's Franco, who's the owner of the restaurant, practicing and patting me on the cheek and saying, thank you for showing me this, but you can't work here. So here we are. This is tonight's show. It's, my favorite streets, part 2. So my favorite streets, part 1, was the Florentine Street Via della Scala, and this is part 2. And this is it's not really a street. It's really a road that runs through eastern Tuscany, known as the Via dei Sette Ponti. And it was my desire, well, let me go back here for a minute. It was my desire, every time I plan a trip to Italy and I ask Luca to show us around Italy, what I do is I give him a theme, and he works out this incredible plan for us. So what I did this time was I said, take us on a tour of the Via dei Sette Ponti. Do you know where that is? And of course he said, yes, I know where it is because I just had lunch in one of the towns along that. So this was what I selected, and it is an incredible area of eastern Tuscany, very, very beautiful, and this is what tonight's theme is going to be. Now the tour will begin here which I showed you during another show 3 weeks ago, of the Villa La Palagina. This is the place we stayed in Felinia Valdarno when we were meeting Luca and Mary, who would be picking us up and bringing us to this incredible area of eastern Tuscany. So we met them here. This is the view, of course, we had of the Chianti Hills. And this is a picture of Luca and Mary just before they were about to take us on our tour. I was shocked when I saw Luca because he had a short haircut. Usually his hair was much longer, so he decided to cut his hair. And this is, we then drove in the car, and Luca consented to driving that whole day. And Laura has to sit in the front of the car, so Laura sat in the front. I sat in the back with Mary. And the first thing Mary did was to pick up her dog, who was being babysat by somebody, I think her daughter. And there she is cradling the dog, who missed her very much. And then we stopped at Luca's father's house, and that's a picture of Luca and his father. And I told him that his father looked just like my father when he was alive. So that's a picture of father and son. And then we went into the piazza in Felinia Valdarno, where we went to that restaurant over there in the corner, on the right-hand corner that you see with the umbrellas, and we had lunch there. And then we began our drive through eastern Tuscany. And this is the map of that area, and let me use my pointer here to show you that this is Felinia Valdarno over here, and this is where the tour began. And then we drove slightly to the east here, and then south along the Via dei Sette Ponti, stopping at all these various towns along the way, and that's what tonight's theme is going to be covering. Okay, it's the Via dei Sette Ponti means the street of the seven bridges. So of course the first thing that I was interested in was looking for the all seven bridges, and we were going to take a picture of all seven of them. Luca said, I have a big surprise for you. The first thing I'm going to do is take you to a tremendously beautiful villa, an estate owned by somebody that you might be familiar with. And he said, have you ever listened to the rock group, The Police? And I said, my God, it was one of my favorite, rock groups. And then, of course, it broke off, and Sting went on his own. And Lucas said, well, this is where he lives. And I said, holy, this is amazing. This is where Sting lives. And he chose an incredibly beautiful area of eastern Tuscany. This is the gate leading onto his estate, which of course we could not get onto because, he wasn't prepared to greet us. But this is his front entrance of his estate. And this is what it looked like as we got close up to the gate. And Laura took this picture looking through the bars of the gate at his front entrance. So this is where Sting lives. We don't have a picture of the house because we could not get that close, but we do have a picture of his vineyard. Sting owns a vineyard where he, makes his own wine, and this is what it looks like. So this was quite a thrill for us. And then we got back on the road and headed in the direction of the Via dei Sette Ponti. And this is what the scene was along that road as we were riding towards our first destination. And of course, I was looking to count the seven bridges, and we just couldn't find the seven bridges. We couldn't even find one of the bridges. So I have no idea what that was all about. But, other than the fact that there were seven bridges, I was interested in this town. This is the entrance to the town of Loro Ciufenna, and that's what it looks like from a distance. It is a beautiful town, and I saw pictures of it on the internet before we actually took this trip, and that's why I told Luca that this is where I wanted to go. So this is the town, and this is a picture of the way we took in order to get up to the center of town, which was where Luca was taking us. At this point, I was simply put in Luca and Mary's hands as we walked up through the town in this direction, up around this beautiful bridge towards this town, and this is the spot that Luca took us to. This is a hundreds-year-old mill. And we went inside this mill and we met the miller, and his name was Giuseppe Parigi, and this is the fellow who's the miller, and the mill has been in his family for hundreds of years, and he told us that originally there were 12 mills in this town, and now there's only one, and he is the person in charge of this mill. He is 85 years old, and this is what it looks like from where the mill is located, looking down at the creek, you know, where the water kind of flows down that runs the mill. This is what it looks like, you know, coming down into the mill. It's a beautiful, beautiful spot, very, very tranquil and peaceful. And this is a close-up of the creek as it meanders through the rocks and through that, you know, under that bridge that we kind of went over that bridge to come around to where the mill is located. This is what the actual mechanism looks like inside the mill. It was quite a thing. I'd never really seen anything like this. And this is the interview that we took with Giuseppe Parigi. So, Ellen, here we go. Is that okay with you?
Yes, he's
It
okay
is?
with him.
Okay, then you stand here with them. I'm going to stand here. You ready, Laura?
Yes, but
Okay, so, you know, the first, okay, tell me when you're ready to start.
I'm started already.
Okay, so I have a television show by the name of Alan's Italy.
Lui fa uno show in televisione, si chiama L'Italia di Alan. Lui tutte le settimane passa.
I show pictures and I talk about places I've been, and people from America see this.
Lui viene da 20 anni in Italia, lui sta facendo un programma da qualche mese, lo fa vedere praticamente agli americani tutto ciò che conosce dell'Italia.
And I would like to just tell you, first of all, that this is really a very beautiful mill.
Molto bello questo mulino, incredibile.
And it's very interesting. This whole thing is very interesting.
Dai passo andato, quando facevo io c'era 12.
12, originally there were 12 mills around. This is the last one, the only one remaining, this one.
Why is this the only one remaining?
Perché è rimasto solo questo? Per come mai?
Perché c'era più attività e io invece essendo nel paese ho lavorato al commercio.
Cioè non c'era più smercio, non c'era...
Io
They were forced to close all the mills because nobody needed them.
Ho lavorato parecchio con queste due castagne,
Chestnuts, corn, and
lavoro
everything.
grosso era quello, era grano. Per Ponti,
Was working for the bread producer, you know, and he's lucky because this is the mill right in the middle of the town. The other ones were here around,
Right.
and they were forced to close 2 years ago. Lui praticamente da quanto tempo gli è rimasto da solo?
Io non vedo che sono rimasto col mulino solo, perché chiusero tutti verso i 60, 65.
1960, 1965, they all disappeared. Then he's alone, the only one, the only mill since 1965.
Quasi dai basso, da Terra Nova.
From Terra Nova
Arriva
to
qui.
Loro Ciufenna.
Arriva a Loro Ciufenna, c'era già, uno era chiuso prima avanti guerra, la due ponti di Movarini proprio. Quello non esisteva tutto, ma c'era un mulino anche da qui. Però arriva qui ce n'erano 2 penna, 2 3, 4, 5, te ne avrai il quinto.
Coming from the valley, this was the 5th mill.
E
And
qui
another
sopra,
7 mills.
qui sopra la feriera, dove è il ristorante ora, c'era un altro mulino come questo. Quello è tutto.
Insomma, ma ancora si lavora bene? Si lavora comunque?
No, io lavoro perché non ho più età.
Ecco, però
Il lavoro ce l'ha, essendo uno giovane ha voglia, il lavoro lo trova, invece di attivare il piano, ti serve una richiesta, macinata alla mafia, all'antia, serve richiesta, io lavoravo parecchio.
he said he's too old, that nobody wants to do this job anymore. But he has a lot of requests. I mean, he could work if some people, young people, would like to come and start to work. No problem, because
Is he ready to retire?
he's
Would he
retired.
like to retire?
Sì, dice no, ma vorrebbe andare in pensione, ma è già in pensione. Quindi è solo per un fatto di cioè per una dimostrazione.
Sì, per vedere un passatempo.
It's a kind of hobby for him now. It's not more. It's not a job anymore
Sono tutte in pensione.
because of the passion of
Io fra 2 mesi, io fra 2 mesi ne piglio 86.
In 2 months he will be 86.
Is that right?
86 in 2 months.
Fra 2 mesi io prendo 86 anni, prendo.
86 years old.
Congratulations.
Congratulazioni.
Voglio avuto.
That's very nice. So, how long have you been doing this?
Da quanto tempo? Da 60 anni, vero? Che lo fa di solito. 60 years.
60 years. Did you?
Da scuola.
After the school and then started to work.
Poi ci fa camminare.
Do you live in Loro Ciufenna
Abita qui allora?
Sì.
your whole life?
Tutta la vita qui a
avevo
Roma.
la casa vecchia qui e ora io ho fatto una asina, no? Ho passato quasi in cima allo stradone, no? Questa c'ho una figliola, l'ha rilevata lei,
Uh-huh.
ci
Now
abita lei.
he had a house right here. Now his daughter is living there. Now he built a new house out of the old town.
Lì in cima a quello stradone.
Yes, right there on the top of the hill, the
Right.
main road.
Does he get paid for this?
Dice, ma è pagato per stare qui o è solo? No, it's his mia. So it's,
He owns the
Mi
mill.
He owns
pagare,
the-
altro che qui fa.
he has to pay
Right.
Lo pagare.
Was it always
for maintenance, you know.
who ran the mill before he did?
Chi ce l'aveva prima di lei il mulino? Chi ce l'aveva prima di lei il
I
mulino?
genitori.
His parents.
Because before that, their parents
Prima i
was
nonni.
always in the
E
family?
prima i nonni. Cioè, è della famiglia. praticamente. Yes. Generations of members.
Right.
Dai miei genitori fu comprato, io sono nato nel 27 e loro il mulino l'hanno comprato perché non era perché stavano su alle montagne di sotto, chiamavano, avevano un mulino, erano 3 fratelli, allora uno venne via, si sposò e era in vendita questo mulino, torna nel 17, 20,
They bought this mill in 1917.
Wow. Now, as he's growing up as a child, did he always, was it assumed that he was going to be taking over this job eventually?
Era scritto che doveva fare questo lavoro, ce l'hanno messo qui a lavorare o proprio sentiva proprio la passione?
fatto,
No, it was written. It was written in the stars.
ma concetto adesso.
Really?
Ha avuto delle ricette, volevano comprare.
Many
20
times
anni
people
fa,
have come
15 anni
trying
fa.
to buy this mill.
Io non l'ho voluto vendere.
No, he did not. He said no. Absolutely no.
Allora c'era il comune, circa 10 anni fa lo voleva lui e io gli dissi no, che posso, ci sto dando i figlioli, non ne vogliono sapere.
Quindi al comune non ci ha fatto niente. The mayor of this town 10 years
Ora
ago
sì, sì.
came and said if
Sono
you want
tornato-
we can buy
Sono
that.
tornato al comune a dirgli io, ora ve lo vendo io.
E ora perché no?
No, non sta più sta una lira, non
Recently you went to
Stand over here, please. Could you stand over there?
se venga qui accanto a me, venga.
Because the camera angle is...
The light,
Venga
the
qui
light,
accanto a me,
It's a bad
perché la
angle. It's a bad
riprende.
angle.
the
It's a
light
bad
has to be
angle.
behind the camera. Ah,
Now,
Okay.
10 years ago, the mayor said, came here and he said, no, I don't sell, I don't want to. Now, a few months ago, he went there, asking the mayor if was still interested.
And the mayor said,
He said, no, thank you.
Right. So, what is his name? I want.
Come si chiama lei? Come si chiama lei?
Giuseppe.
Giuseppe. Joseph.
Giuseppe. Giuseppe, thank you very much. Grazie.
Grazie. Lui si chiama Alan.
Come?
Alan.
Alan. Giuseppe, thank you. What is his last name? Giuseppe.
Cognome?
Cognome è Parigi.
Parigi.
Parigi. Giuseppe Parigi. On behalf of all the wonderful people who will be watching this when I put it on television, I thank you.
La vedranno in America e su televisione.
Thank you very much.
Allora, il funzionamento l'hanno visto tutti gli stati.
Want to see how it works?
Yes,
Want to see?
yes,
Beh,
yes.
questo viaggia con acqua,
Water mill. Yes.
Oh, yes.
Viaggia
please.
Water.
Beh. Gli può vedere questo perché a volte non le posso fare.
Look at the water. The strength of the water.
Ecco.
Look.
What is going on? The corn is being,
Goes into that, it turns, and it's coming out here.
I see. Wow.
Bene, bene. Good.
Amazing. Okay. So, you know, as you could see, you know, he was in the proper position in terms of the videotaping, which Laura had, you know, positioned us at the beginning. And then he suddenly moved, and he moved into a position where there was a light that was behind there, and that was what was creating that purple light that was going down the middle. And Laura saw that and kept, during the interview, kept telling me to move over, but she didn't want to interrupt the interview, so she couldn't, of course, you know, get that message across. And then finally she said, just move over. So we did, and of course that's when that purple light, you know, stopped. So you have to be in the perfect position, and if somebody moves, everything gets a little messed up. So that's the story of Giuseppe Parigi, and him being a miller at this particular mill for 60 years, and it being in his family for several generations. And now, you know, his children don't want to do this, as you might, you know, they want to do other things, and he's having a difficult time, you know, what's going to happen now. So that's the issue. Here's Loro Ciufenna, some more views of it. And it's a you know, really adorable town in the mountains of eastern Tuscany. And, you know, imagine living in one of those houses. And that's where Giuseppe lives, so, you know. And, you know, this guy looks like he could go on forever. And I hope he does. And, you know, people hang their laundry. You know, this is a regular town, so people, you know, live normal lives. Then we walk back up the hill, back to where our car was parked. We got this angle, which is really beautiful. And there's a picture of Luca and Mary and Laura and me just before we were about to leave that beautiful spot. And then, of course, we're back on the road, and we drive along the Via dei Sette Ponti. Still haven't seen a bridge. Anyway, it was still beautiful, and now, you know, we're really into the afternoon's activities. And then Luca turns to Laura and to me and goes, "Would you like to have the best gelato that you've ever had?" And I said, "Well, you know, gee, Luca, we're kind of far from Florence right now, aren't we?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, I don't want to go to Vivoli right now to have gelato because, you know, we're here. You do this." He said, No. I know a place that has better gelato than Vivoli." And I almost collapsed from fright when I heard that. And he took us to this place. Marisa Gelateria in San Giustino Valdarno, which is a town in that same area, not far from Loro Ciufenna. And Luca insisted that this had the best gelato he has ever tasted. So, of course, we were eager because we've always been Vivoli fans. So he brought us into this gelato place, and this is what it looks like. And there were, the usual multitude of flavors, a variety of flavors, and we all had, oddly enough, we all ordered 2 scoops each, 4 of us, for a total of 8 scoops of gelato. I, of course, had my favorites, which are stracciatella, which is chocolate chip, and pistachio. Actually, there it's called pistacchio because when you have a CH in Italian, it's pronounced k, but in the United States, in English, it's pronounced ch. So, you can't say pistachio because they don't know what that is. You say pistacchio. So we all tasted everybody else's gelato, and then Luca looked at me and said, well, what do you think? And I looked at Laura and said, it's pretty good. Very, very good gelato. We tasted all of it. It was amazing. Was it as good as Vivoli? I said the only way I can determine that is if we put the 2 ice creams together next to each other, the same flavor, and I was able to taste both. And of course, that's not going to happen. So, we know that if we're in this region, we could come to San Giustino. And then, Laura said, well, this is the indication because this dog loves it. But you can't go by that because dogs will basically eat anything. So we then left San Giustino, and Luca took us to this incredible town. And this is probably, I've told you before that my favorite town of all time is Civita di Banreggio, and we've been there, 4 times. But this is a town known as Borro, or sometimes known as Il Borro. And this was a tiny little town on top of a hill, immaculately well kept. So you see the name that they have on their map of the town, right at the beginning of the town, is Il Borro. We were calling it Borgo. A Borgo is basically, kind of a walled-in area, which usually had kind of like a castle in the middle, and there was like, the village was kind of around it. So this is what the town of Borgo looked like. Laura took a few doors, but it was a very pretty town with beautiful stone pavement. And this is the view as we were walking up to the main section of the town from the parking lot. It was, this is the view you get when you get to the top of Borgo. Some more views. This was a completely untouristy area. I think we were the only people there, if I remember correctly, except for 2 other people whom we'll show you in just a few moments. These are some of the views they got from the top, and this is what it was like walking through some of the streets. You could see that the houses are stone houses, beautifully well kept. The streets are immaculate, and there's, flower boxes, and, this is a very, very pretty town. They had these, I wanted to throw this in. Laura said, why are you putting that? I said it because it was one of the most beautiful flowers I've ever seen, and it was just like right in the middle of nowhere there. This is another street in Il Borro that we climbed up, and you could see that it's very beautiful. A little different from Civita di Banreggio. Civita is a bit different from what this looked like. So this is a little, this was not quite the same view. This was more out of the way. And, Civita di Banreggio was made famous by a famous tour guide, Rick Steves, who put this amazing town in his book. And, everyone suggested to me that I write a book and put this in it and therefore make it famous. I'm not sure they would want that, though, because they have this beautiful little town here, unspoiled by a lot of tourists. Although when I did Google this town on the internet, I came up with thousands of entries. So this is not completely an unknown town. This is another view of one of the buildings there with the wall, going around it. This is a view from the very top looking, towards another part of town. Really spectacular scenery. And, you could see it's all up and down, so this was not easy on my legs. I have difficulty with my knees, so this was not the easiest place for me to be in. But it was fun, and all we did was walk up and down these beautiful streets looking for a store to go into that was open. And we found one. And this was a store that caught Laura's interest because Laura's daughter is going to be having a baby soon. So this is like, this was a store with all baby things. And at the time, we didn't know the sex of the child, so we didn't quite know what to get. So we left, and they were a little disappointed. They didn't make a sale, but they were happy to have us in the town. And here we are walking around yet again. Again, some of Laura's doors, which are really spectacular. Some beautiful archways. There's Luca and Mary. This is a beautiful picture. And as we got higher, the streets were getting steeper and becoming more and more difficult for us to climb up. But each street was different and interesting, and you just, when you're in a place like this, you just don't want to leave. But, the afternoon was wearing thin, and Luca had one more place to take us to, so we had to kind of start to work our way back down. There was a beautiful church that we went into. The church is very small, as you could see, but very beautiful. Another view of the, look at that stone path, the street right there. It's really amazing. And now I think we began our downward trek. So here we are headed down, and suddenly coming into view, if you could look very carefully at the center of this photograph, you will see a bride, and I can't make it out, but there may have been a groom in there too. It looked like the bride and the groom are kind of hugging. And we wanted to get a photo of this from a distance, but Laura was very reluctant to get closer because she did not want to intrude upon the picture taking, the privacy of this, kind of intimate moment here. So we took this picture, and slightly closer, there's the photographer and the bride and the groom. And then we stopped taking the pictures, and we introduced ourselves, kept walking down this path to the parking lot. And, actually the bride and groom are now behind us. So, we didn't want to destroy their beautiful afternoon. There she is, actually, from the other angle. So we had walked past them, and we took a picture looking the other way. And then they came out of view. And then we were down now by the parking lot looking up. And this is the car. This is not the car that the four of us arrived in. This is the car that the bride and groom arrived in for the photo taking in the town of Borro. And that's, traveling in style. I assume that they were headed from here to the place where the wedding reception would be taking place. And now we're headed down the hill, thankfully. I love that. And now we're back on the road. And, it was getting late, and we knew that we were getting pretty hungry for dinner. But Luca said, I have one more place I would like to take you. And he took us along this road, which was a pretty road, nothing spectacular, but, pretty scenery. And he pulled up right in front of this sign, and I said, where are you taking us? And he said, I'm taking you to the town at the very top there, which is called Laterina. And it's in the same direction as Arezzo. Laterina was maybe, a couple of kilometers to the left, and as you could see, Arezzo, which is the very large town in that area, is only 17 kilometers from the spot that we are now standing. So, in miles, that's a little over 10 miles away, is this major town of Arezzo. And here we were at the Castello Laterina. And the Castello Laterina was built in the, I believe it was built in the 12th century. And there is archaeological evidence that shows that this town was part of it was actually there during Roman times, because it was in a very high, prominent position and commanded the entire Arno Valley below it. It was called something else at the time, and then changed the name later on. But this is what the town looked like, and we were climbing now to get to the center of town. And this is the view we had looking backward from Laterina. You could see that, why it was selected. That location was a beautiful, for defense and so on. And we're climbing now. And we walked through this gate. And I said, "Are we there?" And Luca said, "No, we still have a few hundred meters to go." And I took a look at the direction that he was pointing us to, and I said, "No, that's not for me." And I took a look down, and then I took a look up, and I realized that I was not going any further than that. So there is a picture of me. I sat down on the step, and I was eager to kind of write in my journal, because I had all this information now accumulated that I wanted to remember for the future. And I said, "You go ahead without me, the three of you, and Laura will take some photos, and then you could tell me about your experience." So they continued walking, and that's what I faced when I made my decision. There's Luca in the corner, walking up the hill, and they eventually, this is not, I was not part of the group now, they eventually wound up on this main piazza with this beautiful church. It sort of reminded me a little of the Church of Santo Spirito in Florence, but of course much smaller. And this is the view that they had when they got to the top. So this was something that really is very special to have an opportunity to see. There's another view that Laura took. This is the main piazza from a slightly different angle. There's the church on the right, and there's the clock tower, probably the municipal hall, which usually has the clock. And then, they just kept going up. And, Laura told me that no matter where they got to, Luca kept saying it's just a little further. Luca and Mary can basically climb, any mountain without having, too much effort. Of course, they're around 50 and we're a little older than that, so. They finally got to this spot, which is where the castle was, and it was closed. So they couldn't get any further than this gate to see the castle, because it was closed. And, they took a few pictures of some cars along the way, a view from where the castle was located, and then they came back down the hill to tell me that they were unable to get in the castle. I wasn't pleased with that. I was pleased that I hadn't climbed up this incredible, steep hill, because I could not have made it, but I was happy that at least I didn't miss anything too much, although this is quite a beautiful town. But now they're on their way down. So these are the photos Laura took on her way down, back to where I was seated on that little step taking notes. Another view they took. Another view of eastern Tuscany, which is really, honestly, my favorite area of Tuscany. And here we are headed back to Foligno Valdarno, and you can see that there's we're leaving the town of Montalto in the Arezzo province. And now this is the town, I believe, of San Giovanni Valdarno, which is on the way to Foligno Valdarno. And we're driving through the streets now of San Giovanni, and that's the church, pretty church. And now we're in the town, I believe. I think we're still in San Giovanni. I'm not sure here. I may get a call from Luca telling me that I'm indicating the wrong town. But now we're in Foligno Valdarno, because at this point we decided to pick a restaurant, and we passed by Mary's daughter Maria Cristina and her boyfriend Michael, and we were making a decision on where to go. We came back to Luca's house and to drop the dog off, and then we went to this beautiful restaurant. It was more of a family type place. It wasn't like a real fancy place, but it had spectacularly good food. I had pizza, and it was a really fun place. This is Mary and her daughter Maria Cristina, and I declare that Maria Cristina, it just keeps getting more and more beautiful as the years go on. And this is actually, Maria Cristina does not like being called that. She likes being called by her nickname, which is Cri, C-R-I, and that's Michael. And they are of course a stunning couple, and we had a very, very nice dinner, all of us. And there's my jacket in the background with my hat, which I always put in front of me so I could keep an eye on it. And there's a picture. Mary is obviously very happy that Michael is Cri's boyfriend. He was a wonderful young man, and we had a wonderful time. There's a picture of Luca and me in the restaurant. There is Laura and Mary and Cri, and Mary is wearing Laura's a bead maker, and she makes beads and gives them to a lot of our friends and also sells them. In fact, she's in a store in Woodstock right now by the name of Lily's. And Laura likes to give beads to our friends in Italy, and they're very pleased. This is the pizza that I had, and I can't look at this for very long because I haven't eaten since around noon, and this is driving me crazy. So I'm moving quickly, but I'll tell you right now that pizza was unbelievable. Then we go back on the road and this is, we're already back at the hotel, and this is a picture we took earlier, so just to show you what the hotel again looked like. But this is not the picture we took when we got back because it was already dark. And this is where we were staying that evening, and we hope to go back there next year. And it is my privilege to dedicate the show that you just saw to our really, really wonderful friends, Luca and Mary, for taking us around this incredible view. And this is, back to Orvieto, but the town that we're really talking about, the area, was the Via dei Sette Ponti. So that is tonight's show. Ellen, I think it's kind of time, right? It's kind of hard for me to keep track of the time because...
Yeah, you could still go on. It's only 45 minutes.
45 minutes. Well, gee, I don't know. Well, you know what I could do? Let me do the other story. I had a very interesting week. All my weeks are interesting because I just finished writing a book about my experiences of, being in the studio and doing this show and the whole experience of getting it on the air, which is very, very interesting experience. And I'm now in the process of writing another book on my experiences of traveling around Italy for the past 20 years. And one of the things I wanted to do was to go back and talk a little bit in the book about the history of Woodstock public access television. And Ellen was able to give me a great deal of information because she's been here since the 1980s. But the station actually goes back further than that to the early 1970s, and she wasn't sure of exactly all the details. So she recommended two things, actually three. She recommended that I read a book written by a woman by the name of Nancy Kane, who's one of the founders of the studio. And one of her chapters from her book talks about the experience running, being one of the people who was in charge of managing the studio. And it's a fascinating book that I'm halfway through, but that particular chapter was really wonderful. And then Ellen told me that I should be interviewing two of the people who were involved also in the founding of the studio, namely Bart Friedman and Toby Carey. So I called Bart, and he was very eager to talk to me and gave me a lot of his time, and I got some fascinating information for that book. And then, you know, at the end of the conversation, which lasted about 45 minutes, he said I should be speaking to Toby Carey, and he gave me his phone number. And then I asked Bart if he would like to be on the show. And even though this is a show about Italy, I would, you know, deviate for one evening to have a show in which I would interview Bart and hopefully Toby, and they could tell us all about how this studio began in the early 1970s. And I must say that, you know, it's a fascinating story. So I hung up from Bart and immediately called Toby, who also gave me a lot of his time, and he had even, you know, more stories to tell, and it's you know, it's really fascinating. And I said to, and Toby said that he, you know, he's now a videographer as a living. You know, when he left Woodstock, he went on to become a videographer, and one of the things that he was doing a video of was a very famous bronze sculpture that was done by Leonardo da Vinci in, I believe, this is going to be hard now, either the 15th, end of the 15th or early 16th century. I'm not completely sure. But it was a bronze statue of a horse that would be put into, I think, the town of Bologna. And when the I believe the Florentines, but I'm not sure. Oh, I think it was the Pope's army was fighting against an army from France under Charles V, and the statue was captured by them, and it was melted down into cannonballs, and then it was rebuilt. The copy was rebuilt later on in modern times, and Toby was doing a video of that experience, but never actually finished it. So when I got off the phone from him, I said, we'd like to have you on the show, but even though it's not Italy related, you know, we'd still like to have you. And he said, but it is Italy related because I could talk a little bit about the video that I almost produced on Leonardo's horse. So that would be that, and if we could have them on here on the show, that would be really wonderful. So I think we're now just about ready for the end. So I'd like to thank you for watching, and on behalf of Ellen and me, buonanotte e buona fortuna.